So here I was, sitting in this dimly lit room, racking my brain and investigating my thoughts. It was the first time I was to be honest with my own head. For years, I'd not really understood. I was fearful of understanding. Fearful of most things, really. New experiences, new relationships, new friends. Fearful of my future. If it was anything like the past, you can't really blame me. I did, though. I blame me. I blame myself for my thoughts, my actions, and for how little I have achieved compared to so many others. For how many times I wanted to grab at something but failed. For forgetting to pick something up as I left the house. For forgetting to lock the door. Or did I? See, I blamed me for blaming me. I told myself that I was my own worst enemy. That I held myself back. And that my hopes and dreams were way bigger than my capabilities. For who really am I in this big bad world? I remember my first breakdown, breathing all over the place, the stomach cramps, the sheer exhaustion, the feeling of being totally worn down that takes over, and the fetus position. The fetus position you find yourself lying in, as if an attempt to return to a newborn baby. With not a worry in mind and a whole life left to write yourself. I imagine that's one of the last times I felt generally at ease. Excited for my next life, after spending 57 years as a Caribbean pirate, drinking rum, living freely with the sea. But that was a previous life. It's not like that anymore. The funny thing about breakdowns is the clarity you have right after. The clarity you have for just a minute or two. Everything seems to make sense. Hope returns, and that irrational fear that grips you subsides. And usually, that's when you have the conversation. That's why I had my conversation. Why? Why do I feel like this? I bet you no one else feels like this. No one feels as shit as I do. No one has to endure this shit. Everyone is happy, and I am sad. That's silly, mate. Many people are feeling awful right now. You're not even that bad. You've got a relationship, you've got a roof over your head, and you've got your health. You just need to break through your evil thoughts. Health! Fuck health. My stomach is all over the place, and I see nothing good ever happening. It's never getting better. Yeah, well, you're just being anxious. Ah, fuck. Anxious. It hit me. My subconscious may have been aware of it for years, but I've never really allowed myself to put a name on it. I had to really sit and ask myself why. But I knew. It was because I didn't want to be vulnerable. I wanted to portray this unbelievably happy and confident person to everyone around me. I wanted to portray this unbelievably happy and confident person to everyone around me. Maybe if I portrayed this person, then that's who I'll become. Maybe if I looked to be happy and confident, then I'll always be happy and confident. Maybe if I ran away from my problems, they'll just stop chasing me. But it never happened. The more I ran, the more tired I'd become. The more I ran, the more breaks I'd needed. It never got better. Telling myself that I had a mental health issue that needed to be addressed was not easy. It wasn't pretty, and my head did not want to accept it whatsoever, but could not deny it any longer. Only when my head decided to take reality into account did I attempt and start understanding why it pushed me to think or behave in a certain way. Why small things pushed me over the edge. Why I was telling myself I cannot when I was more than capable. Why exactly was fear controlling my actions? I needed to understand why we treated each other in certain ways, why we spoke to each other in certain ways, why we behaved around each other in certain ways, why we hurt each other, why we made each other happy, what brings all that together. So this is what we're doing. We're learning about ourselves. We want to indulge in ourselves. So welcome to the very first episode of Mindful Self Indulgence. My name is Omar, and I'm going to be your host. We're going to look into a few things, and we're going to try and learn. As mentioned, we're really looking mostly at social psychology. How I got here, I have no idea. I've been a fan of podcasts for a very, very long time. Someone who drives a lot for work. I found that listening to podcasts is a much better and more effective solution for me than to just be listening to music all the time. Sometimes you just get kind of bored of your regular playlist, and yeah, like I say, podcasts is the ones that really save me, whether I was driving or walking my dog. And I've always wanted to get involved in it myself, and kind of always coincided with the idea of getting to know myself a little better. What you guys had just heard there was one of my first very ever blog posts that I wrote for this project. So the project itself is really a mixture of podcast episodes and blog posts that will be looking into discovering why we act in certain ways. It's really a journey that I'm going to take with you guys. And every week or every second week when the podcast and the blogs do come out, I'll be learning about new things that I'll be coming and sharing with you guys. Team is really just myself and our sound man, Mr. Connell O'Hare.
You right?
So we're just kind of seeing where we're going with the podcast and what it is that we're going to be able to present to you guys. But we're happy to be here, and we're really excited to be taking this journey with you guys. I think the main objective and goal, Connell, is to looking at... You kind of grow up and you have this idea in your head as, I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen, and then I'm going to do this, and then this is going to happen. And at one point, it just becomes quite disappointing, doesn't it? It all just kind of comes crashing down, and you go, oh, actually, wait. Everything, although a lot of the things that I've been kind of grown up to think that, well, maybe if I do this, tomorrow is going to be better, and if I do this, then tomorrow is going to be better, isn't really the case. It's more about what you're doing right now and how you're spending your time.
You have to do the
right
adult
now.
stuff to actually make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, I don't know if it's fair saying reality is a bit of a disappointment, and maybe that's the reason why we're starting to see so many mental health issues that are coming within, especially younger people these days, with the difference in whether be it...
It's actually becoming harder.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one of these things where I think we need to know a bit more. I think there's things that we don't get taught when we're younger, things that we don't get told when we're younger, that could possibly be helpful to us when we're adults. And I think when I say that, for me personally, it's always been psychology. You know, you kind of always feel like you want to be a bit in control of your own thoughts and how you deal with things, but it doesn't seem to be the case. But understanding why these things happen make it a bit easier on us. Once you understand why you deal in certain ways, why people deal with you in certain ways as well, then it becomes a bit easier to kind of deal with the consequences or whatever happens, because you're more aware of it. It's not a total surprise to you, if that makes any sense. So I think what we're wanting to look at more than anything is is why. You know, why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why does this happen to us? We really want to look at social psychology, like I've mentioned. It's interesting to be going into that for someone like me, because I've had these questions for a very long time. You know, why do I get up in the morning? Why do I make myself breakfast? Why do I go to work? Why do I not just kind of, you know, after I finished my university, or just even before I went to my university, why didn't I just pack up and go somewhere sunny and just do my thing over there? You know,
why did you decide to like start a business and stuff like that?
Yeah. What made me do all these things? It never made. It's not that it didn't make much sense. There was always this thing inside me. Even things as, why did I get angry at this person? Why did I forgive that other person? Why did I forget this? Why did I remember this? Why does your brain choose to work in the way that it chooses to work? These are questions that have always been very, very strange to me. So that's really what we're wanting to do in this podcast. We're wanting to answer all these sort of questions that personally intrigued me over the years. And I'm hoping that you guys will find this very interesting as well. And maybe on taking this journey with me, someone will find some solace, as I hope to, myself as well, in understanding this crazy, crazy, crazy world that we live in. So I think we'll go straight into the topic. We'll look into getting right into it. And today's very first topic is what motivates us. And I think that's a really interesting topic because it links into everything. What gets us up in the morning? Is it incentives that we look at? Do we get up because we want to do something, or because if we don't get up there will be a consequence? Is it because we want to reach something, or is it because we're scared we'll get dragged into something if we don't get up in the morning? And it's quite interesting just to have a little chat about the status quo, really, because if I said to you, Connell, what motivates you, I think, like everyone else or a lot of other people, one of the first things that'll come into your head will be money. Yeah,
No.
give me some money and I'll get some
Definitely.
work done. And I think, that's the thought, that's the economist's sort of...
It's equally demotivating though as well when you don't have a good situation with money. But a lot of people's relationship with money seems to be they don't put the effort into actually learning how to manage it properly and well. It's just another thing. It's like getting fit. You don't look after your ability to use it, you're not going to be as good with it anyway. You're not going to be looking at the people in the gym and being like, oh, why am I not as fit as them, when you're not putting in the work.
Yeah, of course. So it's kind of like you have to have that personal belief in what you're wanting to do as well.
Yeah.
So that you're actually, and when I say motivation, it depends on, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about motivation to just get the basic minimum done? Or are we talking about motivation where we're like, I'm really going to go out there and I'm going to knock this out the park because that's what I really want to do. And it's really interesting. So let's go into, so I wonder if you've ever heard the story of Aaron Ralston. So Aaron Ralston was an explorer, and he was walking about the Blue John Canyon, basically just exploring the canyon. I think it's a very small canyon in Utah. And I think there was a movie made about this, actually, 127 Hours. It was by James Franco.
Yeah.
So as our friend Aaron here is exploring, he falls. And he falls basically between two cliffs, and a rock falls on his arm. And he's stuck. So his arm is completely under a rock, and he's stuck between a cliff. He can't really climb up. And he's there for a very long time. Now, I can't tell you how true the movie is, but if it's got any truth to it, I would imagine 127 hours is how long he was there for. He had some supplies, obviously, as he was exploring, so he went through all his food, went through all his water, started actually drinking his own urine just to survive. He was quite a strong lad, and probably had what I would imagine quite a strong mental state to not kind of give up straight away. Unfortunately, it did creep up to him, and he did start videoing his goodbyes, and I think he was very much ready that this was going to be his death. And the rumour is that he dreamt of holding what would be his future son, picking him up and laughing with him and kind of living with his family. And when he woke up, he was so motivated that he broke his own arm to get out from under the cliff and used a small knife that he had in his pocket to amputate his arm so that he can climb out, which he did. Now, if that's not motivation, I don't really know what is. And I think the interesting thing about that is it takes us to the very general sort of what motivates us. Is it instincts? Instincts is a really important sort of word and phrase that we can use here, because for a long time, scientists assumed that motivations are pretty much instincts, that it was these human instincts that would make us do certain things, and they were just in us. It didn't change from person to person. But I think throughout the years we started realizing that no, that's not really the case. Different people are actually motivated by different things, so it's not a specific species or animal kind interest. It's more of it's your circumstances and whatever it is that you've went through that allows you to be motivated in certain ways. So we started looking at multiple theories as sort of humankind, and we started realizing that we have something inside us that motivates us to fulfill our drives. Now, they call it drive reduction theory. So if you wake up and let's say you're hungry, you will go to the kitchen and you will make something to eat, because if you don't, you're just going to remain hungry. You're going to have that unpleasant feeling. So you have the drive to eat. So you are motivated to get up and do something. Let's say, for instance, you have the drive to go to college. Then a lot of people will sit and study and get certain grades that they need because the drive is to get to college. So that motivates me to get my daily thing done. It's the thing is, it happens in so many ways, and I think it's like the word drive really is it drive? Is it purpose? What is it that we call it inside our head? I think again, it's not really instinct anymore. It changes from one person to the other, and that takes you to, are you motivated by incentives? Is it certain incentives? We've already talked about money. I think money for a lot of us is the biggest incentive, or what we think especially when it comes to work. When it comes to serving others, we feel that there needs to be that monetary incentive. Maybe with ourselves and with our family, other things motivate us in our day-to-day. But when it comes to working, then whatever stage that you are, whether you're a business owner, manager, or employee, employer, whatever it is that you do, you always believe that money is the biggest incentive. But there are other things, it could be free stuff that will allow you to live an easier life, so you don't need that money to then go ahead and buy it. It could be a show, or it could be becoming famous. Or these incentives, like I say, do change from one person to the other, and some of us are driven towards different things because of what we were born in.
Well, the money system's just an evolution of exchange. 1,000 years ago, I'll give you a goat if you give me a bale of hay or something like that. So it's the same kind of like exchange of gifts in a sense, but it's just putting a value that everyone can agree onto it, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. Like you say, it wasn't natural. Money didn't grow on trees or anything. It was something that was completely made by us for reasons that I think a lot of people will agree or disagree on.
It's just another concept just to make things organised. Time isn't really a real thing in the way we think of it. It's just something that we made up to allow us to organise how we run things and how our life goes and everything. And money's just another equivalent of that same idea.
For sure. No, definitely, for sure. It is made up things that allowed us to live the societal life that we live now. I always do sometimes sit and think, imagine if that person or that body or that group of people came up with something else. We'd live a completely different life. Because these are things that time and money, we base so much of our life on time and money. So it's really interesting to think, well, what if it wasn't time and money? What if they called something else? Is it that simple? Is it really that simple? It's just like if they had literally had a different day, or a different sort of frame of mind, or if it was a slightly different group of people, that we would be living a completely different type of society and different type of life. That's another really interesting sort of question. But going back to our motivations, another really interesting thing when it came to that is a theory called the optimal arousal theory. So we are motivated to balance between our hunt for our drives and to be relaxed. Let's say personally for interest, I am quite a passionate and motivated person. I am, involved in a couple of different things that I like to work in. But at the same time, there's certain days where I just have to switch off. Not because I'm the most tired I could possibly be, or I'm about to burn out if I don't, but I need to switch off. I need to have that sort of fun time or me time, whether it's just going back to something like gaming. I quite enjoy my gaming, and for me that's a great way to just get on with my life and get outside reality, but still kind of be in it and not do so much to go outside my usual day, if you know what I mean. Another thing that you'll find is someone like yourself, for instance, who's interested in audio in a time and world where audio doesn't pay a lot of money. It wasn't like years and years ago when if you were making money and you produced one thing. That was it. You were famous, and famous meant money.
It's almost like there's basically just a wage gap between who's successful and who's not, and you kind of just jump straight from having nothing to having loads if you really get noticed and you're good at it. But otherwise, 99.9% of people stay at the bottom and they'll never make anything of it.
And I think the interesting thing about that is why. If you're staying at the bottom, if you're not making that money, then why is it? And I think that's quite an interesting topic, and especially when it comes to sort of creative arts. It is such an interesting topic, is because that's what you usually find it in. You'll usually find the people that are willing to work so hard for not much in return. What motivates you to do that? If you're saying that even now I can actually have a following, I can have thousands and thousands of people in a following and still be making pretty much no money, is quite a scary and strange thing to be saying to yourself.
That's the thing, though. It's like some people literally aren't motivated by money, and they're motivated not by their own personal gain, but just how the project presents itself to others.
Of course, I completely agree with that, and I think that's the interesting thing that takes us to sort of the other theory that kind of concludes everything that we've talked about, which is the hierarchy of needs. And I think we all have needs, and depending on what these needs are, how they motivate, if we've reached them, then they stop motivating us. But as long as we've not reached them, then our motivations is to reach that next stage. So, I mean, the first thing that you would think of is the physiological things like, eating, drinking, the things that will actually things that will, if you do not have, you will generally die on the spot. That's the first thing that motivates us as human beings. Your second thing is safety. Your want for a roof on your head, to ensure that you've got your own personal space and that you're safe within that space, whether you want to call that home of just a few people, whether it's a lot of people and you're all sort of hanging out together and keeping each other safe, whether it's a pack or an isolated sort of thing. It depends. Or a tribe. Yeah, definitely. Your next step would be belongingness and love. And that really interesting, because that's what happened to our old friend Aaron Ralston. He wanted to have a family. That was one of the things that really motivated him to break his arm and cut through his own skin, amputate himself and rise so that he can have a family. He thought, in that moment, I am never ever going to see that. I'm never going to live that. And I'm not going to get another chance. If I die here, that's that. So it motivated him because he wanted belongingness and love, and it just really broke him that he was sitting here and that was all just being taken away with him through the hours. Just as every minute passed, it was more and more likely that he wasn't gonna get that. So it was likely that he had achieved a sense of physiological motivation. He's happy with that. He had his water. He had his,
he's drank his pee.
He's drank his pee. He's drank his water. He's had his food. And at that point, it goes, well, that's not really done anything for me. So the next thing is, I'm not safe. I'm gonna die, and there's nothing I can do about that. So that doesn't really motivate me anymore. I've tried as much as I can, because the whole thing is I didn't want to die.
He's got his rock.
Yeah, I've got my rock. There's nothing I can do here. So the next thing that he's really thinking of there is family, and that's where it snapped for him. That's where he went, right, okay, I definitely 100% I'm gonna do this. If I'm gonna die anyway, I'm gonna go through the pain as well, even if there's the smallest risk of getting what I need. That would be sort of your next step. The next step after that would be esteem, self-actualization, and self-realization. So that would be more of like, I want to be realized. I want to be accomplished. I want to go the next level from where I am right now. Because right now things are just going, they're just happening. But I want to get to the level where
you've always got to push for progress.
I'm pushing, and I'm starting new things for other people. So that's what you would call your hierarchy of needs. But it still always takes you to the sense of who's where, and how do you know where you are? And well, maybe You've got safety, but you want more safety. Maybe you have belongingness and love, but you want more belongingness and love. So again, it changes from one person to the other so much, and what it is that they may need, what it is that they may want. And I think one of the main things to talk about, and that's going again to the being a creative sort of person and someone who's wanting to create. Why is it that you're not motivated by the same incentives as the next person? Well, that's really interesting, Connell, because there's a lot of experiments and a lot of science that was looking into incentives, because understanding incentives was looked at as, if we understand incentives and we can offer the right incentives, then we can get people to do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's really, effectiveness and trying to get people to be so effective and so efficient is what years and years of collaboration, especially in business fields, was going after. So let's kind of look at motivation in work, or motivation and what gets us up in the morning. There is, in 1945, some cool dude called Carl Dunker created something called the candle problem. I don't know if you've ever heard of the candle problem, but what it is you would go into a room, there would be a table, and on that table you would have a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and some matches. And your goal is to attach the candle to the wall side where the table is, without any wax falling on the table. A few people tried, your obvious things. Obviously, you see the thumbtacks and you think, right, well, there needs to be a reason. There needs to be something for the thumbtacks. So you start trying to use the thumbtacks to fixate the candle onto the wall. But obviously the wax would still fall down, and I don't think the thumbtacks would really hold the candle that well. The second thing, which, kind of took a little bit more sort of thinking outside the box, was people thought, well, what if we melt the side of the candle and use the wax to basically stick it onto the wall that way?
Okay.
Because then it'll just kind of, it'll melt.
area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it won't fall and you won't get it onto the table. But again, you had the same problem. That didn't work. So what they found is that there was an option 3. Unfortunately, there's a little thing called functional fixedness that very much blinded so many people to that solution. Now, functional fixedness is when you see something and your brain automatically tells you or assumes what the function of it is. So when you see the box of thumbtacks, you assume that you would need to only use the thumbtacks. But the solution was really to empty the box of the thumbtacks, to put the candle on the box and use the box as a holder. And you would attach the box to the wall using the thumbtacks. So it's not a narrow perspective of what it is that we're going to do. We're looking all around us and we're trying to use everything around us in the room to find that solution. So another cool dude called Sam Glucksberg, who's now at Princeton, or a few years ago, I'm not sure where he is now, was a Princeton scientist, used the candle problem to experiment the power of incentives. So what he did is he got 2 groups of people. He gave them the problem, and for the first group, there was no incentives. There was nothing given. It was just a matter of seeing how long it would take you to solve this problem. More than anything, he just wanted to see, on average, with no incentives, how long would it take these people to solve it, right? Okay. And then the second group were given incentives. So if you were the top 10% to solve the problem, you would get $5 to $10. If you were in the top 5%, you'd get 10 to 20. Yeah. So it's just your usual basic, carrot and sticks. If you do well, you'll get something. The results were incredibly interesting, because the group that was incentivized as a whole took roughly 3 minutes longer to complete the task. That doesn't make sense, right? I mean, tell someone to do something for free, and he does it quicker than someone who's been incentivized with money or whatever it is that they were incentivized with are doing it, and it wasn't like a few seconds. It was 3 minutes longer. that starts to make you think, we need to look into that, right? So Glucksberg repeats the same experiment again, but this time he removes the thumbtacks from the box. So the box just looks like a box. It looks like another item. It doesn't look like it's there just to be the recipient of the thumbtacks.
All right.
It becomes more obvious of what it is. And this time, the group that's incentivized kicks the other team's butts. Like, completely wipe them when it comes to time. Now, what he sort of saw from that is that when it's obvious, when it's a monotonic task, when it doesn't require you to think hugely outside the box, then incentives do work. You know, given someone, especially when it comes to financial incentives, they will work. You know, it's obvious. I can see exactly what I need to do. You know, and there's a very specific narrow goal that I need to achieve, very short term. I can do that if you give me more money. But when it comes to thinking outside the box, thinking of new ways to do things that people haven't told you before, increasing and giving more incentives didn't actually help. It actually had a negative impact. So you have to realize that I mean, I do completely understand that is probably making me sound a bit ridiculous right now.
Actually, I'm thinking
quite the opposite, right?
Yeah, no, I can totally see it, because it's like, if you increase someone's wages when they're a shelf stacker, they're gonna come into the next day at work a little bit more motivated to actually do what they're doing. In terms of, like, say, an artist or a painter or something like that, as soon as you put money on it, it sets a
price to what it is that you're giving them.
Well, yeah, that, but it also puts on an expectation that's given by someone else. So you would want to do the task by their standards, but also someone else's expectation, and it takes away from your creative freedoms.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you do put a price on something, it sets it to that's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't become yours. There is the expectation sometimes from employers or business owners that they want people to act in the business or in their work or whatever it is that they're doing like it is theirs, like they would do in their own home, but they don't get the control and the freedom to work in it as they would want to. So it's kind of getting that medium, or that happy medium, if you want to call it that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's one of these things, Connell, that maybe we're not as manipulative and predictable as we may think, or not as easily manipulated, and predictable as we may think we are. Now, let me go through another experiment that kind of looks at this theory and discusses it further. So, yeah, there is more science to actually say that the more money I give you, the less work you're going to do for me.
All right.
Crazily enough. So, there was Dana Riley is one of the top economists in our time. So him and a group of economists from MIT, University of Chicago, and Carnegie did an experiment on some MIT students. So they were given, different tasks. Some were physical, some were puzzles, some were like memorization, and they were told to perform these tasks. And they kind of put them into three groups, and if you do super well, you'll get a lot of money. If you do medium well, you'll get a decent amount of money. Or if you just did the bare minimum, then you would get nothing to a very small incentive. And they kind of incorporated that across a few groups and changed the incentives, or whether they were a lot of money or not so much money, and they changed a lot of the things that they were doing. And the findings, again, were really, really interesting, because what they found is that as long as the task didn't require a lot of cognitive skill, which is, what you use your right-hand side part of your brain for, the artistic side, the side that looks to think outside the box, as long as the task didn't require a lot of that, then yeah, sure, incentives work, especially financial incentives. Carrot and stick. You do really well, you'll get a better carrot, and if you do really badly, you'll get a sharper stick. And it's just the way that, kind of a lot of businesses work. But when it came to something where you were remotely to use your brain, you know what I mean? They found that the people that were offered medium incentives and the people that were offered small incentives actually did the same, but the people that were offered the biggest incentives did the worst out of everyone. When it came to you being creative, being offered a ridiculous amount of money made you do worse than someone who was offered less money or a natural amount of money. Now, a lot of people may think, well, you know, how much were they offered? How much were these MIT students really offered? You know, okay, maybe it won't work on like, you know, a couple of quid or 20 quid or even 50 quid. It's not really anything, you know, but when it comes to, will it be the same when you're talking about like thousands of pounds?
Yeah.
If I gave you thousands instead of 100, will it be the same thing? So what they did is they went to rural India, because they thought, well, whatever money we're given here in rural India is going to be so much more because of the currency conversion. And it also means that it's a completely different culture. You know, they're not affected by the same cultures and atmospheres as MIT students in Massachusetts. So what they did is they did the exact same experiment again. If you did the best, you get 2 month wage. If you did medium, you get 1 month wage. And if you did not so well, you get 2 weeks wage. And it was still incentives across the floor. And they found the exact same result. If it is that it's the same thing that you're doing, if it's automated, then yeah, I mean, incentives will work great. But if not, then medium and small will do exactly the same, and they'll do better than the people that are incentivized more, right? And here's the interesting thing now. Now, we are living in a sort of a globalized industry and in a globalized culture where we're not doing the same monotonic and automatic things, are we? No. We're getting systems to do it for us. And even if we can't get systems to do it for us, we're subcontracting to India or you know, places in Africa or other places in Asia, and we're getting these people to do it for us. So the people that are actually in the sort of the Western culture are doing more and more what you would call white collar, needing cognitive sort of
organizing and managing.
Yeah, and managing and organizing and creativity and thinking outside the box and innovating. That's what, I mean, that's the way that the world is kind of taken, is that that's what's happening in this side of the world. And a lot of the times in the other sides of the world, it's more subcontracted and passing it on to them.
Yeah.
So why is it that here we're still going with the same? I mean, these are scientific experiments that have been happening for 50 years. Right? Yeah. This is top economists and top scientists in economy and in you know, motivation and work that are finding these experiments. I mean, something in 2009, London School of Economics did a research on paid for performance plans in sort of these white collar companies, you know, and they found that what they said exactly was, we find financial incentives often have a negative impact on overall performance. So you're seeing this in India, you're seeing it in the US, you're seeing it in London. It's the same results. It's not what we're being told, is it? It's not how life is going. We're still ignoring this. 2019, and we're still ignoring these things. I mean, there's something, you are starting to see them in a lot of businesses. I mean, for instance, Google's really good, or we hear that Google's really good for allowing people to kind of do their own thing, and money isn't, I mean, they get paid well, but money isn't the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of the time we start looking into these things, and I mean, scientists have given us the problem, but have they given us the solution? And yeah, they have. And it's quite simple. You can put it into 3 things. If you're wanting compliance, yeah, fair enough. Do the traditional mean of management, you know, which is carrots and sticks and incentives. And if you do well, you'll get something, you get a bonus. If you don't do well, you'll get fired. You know? That'll get compliance. But if you're wanting engagement and innovation in a world where there's so much competition, then you need to look at the new scientific research into what motivates us, and you can split them into 3 things.
Yeah.
So you've got autonomy, you have mastery, and you have purpose. So autonomy is really the urge to control our own life, and I think we don't really need to convince anyone of that. We all know that when we are in control of our own life, we feel so much better. We feel so much more in control. We feel like we're stronger, we're faster, we're more capable, because we're in control of our own little sort of lives. A good example of that, for instance, is, when we talk about work, and that working is, there's an Australian company called Atlassian. So Atlassian proposed a 24-hour, or what they call a 24-hour sort of scheme of work, in which they go to their employees and they say, for the next 24 hours, you can work on whatever you want. You can use our resources, you can use our time, we will pay you for these hours that you're working, but you will work on whatever it is that you want. You can come in whenever you want, you can leave whenever you want, you can have meetings if you want to. You don't have to if you don't want to. So it's just complete autonomy over your own schedule.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And they found that is brilliant. They called it the I don't know if you ever heard the FedEx strategy, because it was like the I'm sure it's a huge copyright. I don't think they ever brought it out, but I think the thing of them is it was like, deliver something by the end of the 24 hours. So something has to be delivered by the end of 24 hours.
For clarification, is that 24 hours like one day, or is that 24 hours of actual work time?
I would imagine, to be honest with you, I haven't really looked at the little specifics of it, but I would imagine that it would be 24-hour sort of business hours. Because if you think,
40-hour week and over half of it's been put on doing whatever you want.
Whatever you want, and that's the thing, dude. I mean, they have found that so much. They've had so many bug fixes. They've had so many new hacking softwares. So much new coding and new innovations has come out from these people, like basically finding their own problems and coming up with solutions for the problems that they're seeing that maybe the managers aren't seeing, or that the business doesn't have the ability to organize within someone. So leave them to use autonomy, to control what they want to do and bring out results, right? Yeah. And like I say, it worked. So what they did is that they moved to the 20% time, and that was famously used by Google, right? And what it is that they basically say 20% off your time working for us, you can use doing whatever it is that you want. To be honest with you, thinking of that, if we think 24 hours within a 40-hour week, that's a 50% of their time. So I'm going to say within the next 24 hours,
that's 55% of the whole week.
Yeah, so I would imagine Atlassian went, here, you've got the next 7 hours, but we'll call it 24-hour schedule just to make it sound a little bit better. But hey, they did well. They did really, really well with it. Like I say, what you'd kind of want to be looking at more than anything is, what Google did with the 20% time as well, because so much came out of that. Products like, I think Gmail was one of the products that came out of 20%, and Gmail's huge. I mean, I remember when I was younger, Hotmail was what everyone had a Hotmail, but I mean, I don't think, I think if you don't have a Gmail now, you need to be moving to Gmail.
Hotmail's now my account where I put spam.
Yeah, it's the old email, and everyone uses Gmail. So I think same with Google News as well. So there's so many good products and so many good things that are coming out from us being motivated by our own sort of autonomy and our own will to do good things ourselves without someone telling us to do them. So let's look at the next one, which is mastery. And I think mastery is one that you could probably relate to, and I think a lot of artists can relate to. Yeah, because mastery is really just getting better at something that matters to you. So imagine the amount of hours that you would have put in learning how to produce, learning, playing with certain things, watching videos on how to do things. You don't get paid to do any of that. You could.
A lot of the time you pay to do it.
Pay to do it. And I think the risk as well, that there's no 100% that by doing this you're gonna make that money as well.
Yeah,
you just want to be good at it. I mean, as well as you would hope to make money from it.
I think those motivated by mastery of something creative like that are probably the poorest demographic of people.
No, definitely. You do get that, but they still keep going.
Yeah.
They're still there. The buskers that are there in the weekends playing for you. the people that produce and put out. I mean, there's so much free content that gets put out now on social media. It's not even like personal channels where you could go, well, they're getting that data from you. A lot of it, sometimes there is just content going out, and it's going out across all channels, and you can't see them getting anything out of that. So why is that they do it? Because they want to be the best. They want to be good, and they want to achieve that internal motivators, you know?
Yeah.
Which really takes you again to purpose, because it's kind of the same thing, but with purpose, it's like you want to do something for a reason that's bigger than you, than your mastery, than your autonomy. You're doing it for the greater good. And you see that with so many like charities, with so many like medicinal people that are, you know, I mean, I know there's a lot of pharmaceuticals, and the pharmaceutical industry is very well known for its wanting to make money, but there is a lot of institutions and bodies out there that do not make money in return of their work, or make very, very little money to what it is that they do. If we think of how nurses and teachers and things like that, how they get reimbursed, they don't get reimbursed as well as other people. But why do they do it? Because they save people, because they teach people, because they put their mark on people's lives and on their world. So, I mean, like I say, so even like, you know, with the whole environmental thing growing so much, why are these people doing it? Why are we looking at electric cars and newer things and solar power? We could just do, I mean, we're going to die, you know, in 30, 40, 50 years anyway. So why are we doing for the future, for people that we're not even going to meet? But that's because we need to have that purpose, something it's bigger than all of us. It's not just about us. So I mean, these things make sense, right? When you actually sit and think of them on a daily basis, whether in your work or whether in your major life or just general life, these things do make sense. Autonomy, you want to control your life and control what you do. Mastery, you want to get better at what it is that you're doing, just so that you can say, I've done that. I've started from scratch and I've gotten to being so good at something. And the third thing is purpose, which, I mean, all of us want to work for purpose. A lot of the time now you hear about businesses that talk about, you know, being customer driven. So you're wanting to be customer driven. You're wanting to create your whole business model on what people want.
The customer is always right.
Yeah, it's it's not even that. It's just more of the purpose of it is to serve the customer.
Although that being said, having worked in retail, the customer is not always right.
I think quite a few people, whether you're in retail or not in retail, will agree with that, Connell.
Just service jobs, to be honest.
I think it's one of these things that, like I say, we're all so different, you know, and we all are incentivized and motivated by so many different things that we are always going to... I mean, if you think when you're serving someone, your motivation is to look after the business that you're working in and yourself. And the person, the consumer that's coming in is motivated by their own desires as well. So if there is going to be a clash in that, there is going to be a clash in that, and it happens more often than not. You know, so it's really interesting that even things like that, again, take us back to the topic of what motivates us and what incentives do we have and what drives us to be the people that we are, and how that changes from one person to the other. You know? Cool. It's really interesting. One example that I really, really found interesting was Wikipedia is something that I think no matter where you are in the world, you are using this technology, right? You are going on Wikipedia and getting so much of your information from there, and it's made a brand for itself that it's trustworthy, even though you know that anyone can go in there and give you that information. But you're still going to go in there and believe that information. Because as much as there is people that are writing it, there is people that are sitting and filtering through it. It started a completely free platform. Just to give information out. Now here's the funny thing, is that before Wikipedia started, Microsoft actually wanted to start an encyclopedia called Encarta. I think that's what it was called, Encarta. And that was funded by Microsoft. They paid, historians and scientists and researchers to come up with all the information, and they paid managers to manage all this time and all the money and all the budgets, and did this whole huge incentivized plan of how we're going to get that information. Have you ever heard of Encarta?
Nah, never.
You've definitely heard of Wikipedia though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So how did that win? How is it that non-incentivized thing that where people are passing knowledge and information, when the era of knowledge and information started on the internet, was taken over by an unincentivized group, and up until this day that information is still available to you, it's still being added to, it's still being updated, and these people aren't making any money.
Yeah.
Let's look at social media. I find social media to be really interesting when it comes to motivation, because what motivates us to put so much on social media? Is it to connect? Is it that sense of belonging that we were talking about when we talked about hierarchy of needs?
It's definitely marketed as
it's to connect, right?
Yeah.
So does that take us to the whole hierarchy of needs where, like, belongingness and love? Is it digital belongingness and love? Is that what motivates us to put so much on? And is that what motivates us to get so much of our entertainment and media from that source and that channel?
Well, it's looking back at the actual hierarchy of needs, it doesn't fulfill any physiological or any safety needs, so it's...
Oh, no.
Even looking at it, it's like it only really fills in belongingness and self-esteem, and I suppose at a push upwards.
Yeah. Well, that's what you'll find, is that once it's definitely not something that you need to survive.
Yeah.
But it's taken so much of our motivational sort of wants and given them to you. You can belong, you can have a really good self-esteem if you get the likes, so it could actually completely break you as well and make you motivated that you're wanting more and more and more. And you find that people's move from reality to social media because they're motivated to reach these things, and they sometimes don't find a way of reaching them in their personal life.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a thing. But I mean, people that put their content on social media, we make our own entertainment. We're not incentivized. I mean, now we are. But when social media first started, you weren't being paid to be a YouTuber.
No, not at all.
It just started. I mean, and it started becoming a thing because we made it a thing. But at the start of it, it was just motivation. You just wanted, it was a way for you to share your talent and to talk to other people and to connect and belong, and then have a level of mastery within the social media that you can actually do this thing as well, or you can entertain, or you can be well known. So there's that sense of mastery, there's that sense of purpose, and there's that sense of autonomy to social media, which is, I think, why we're so motivated and why our brains just accept it so much, because like you say, from belongingness and love up. And I mean, sometimes there is levels of safety on there that you can, mark yourself safe. You can contact people that you would be able to contact, that you can connect with people. So it is, the model is there to really, really hit on your motivations and your desires as a human being to reach that sort of sense. And it's quite interesting. Again, the review system. Why do we review things? Especially when it's... I mean, I can understand maybe when it's bad because it's out of spite or out of pittiness, or you want to get back at that company. But why do we review things when they're good? Because there's a purpose.
Yeah. No, I suppose it's like the Wikipedia thing. It's...
We try to tell each other.
You want to share and tell things that are good to other people, but...
Yep. So it's a purpose beyond yourself and beyond your own.
Because I wouldn't actively
needs.
Share something that's bad just to tell people it's bad. Although I probably
sometimes
have at
we
some
do.
point. It depends how.
I can remember of a few takeaways myself that I've done it with.
Fair enough.
No, but I mean, that's the thing. You deal with so many things, and sometimes it is that you've got to take a step back and you've got to look at it from the sense of what's driving me to do this. And it's been a really, really interesting and fascinating topic to look at, to be honest with you, and the science behind it is ridiculous, and hopefully we can revisit this topic in another episode. So here's the deal. Let's wrap this up. I mean, we're definitely not saying that finances and incentives are not important. Obviously, we need financial incentives to survive. We live in a very, economic capitalistic world. You pay for something, you get this something, and you need certain things for you, for your family, whatever it is, to survive. So it's definitely understandable that the idea that we need financial incentives are there, but the notion that is all we need, the notion that it's either a sharper stick or a sweeter carrot, doesn't really work. The idea that we are this incredibly manipulated and very easily kind of seen people that just get money for what they do and that is all they will ever need is not true. We need autonomy, we need mastery, and we need purpose. We as human beings want to do more. It's not just a matter of get paid to do this job and that will be it. Yeah, surely that will bring you compliance. Management isn't a natural thing. It was made by us, so was money. But the internal incentives that you want, the things that you really want to do, are what make this what it is. Businesses all over the world really need to start understanding that there is a huge gap between what we know and what we do. People all over the world need to start understanding that they are more than just something that makes money to pay that money out. Give people just enough money that they don't need to think of money, but then let their autonomy, their mastery, and their purpose, their internal incentives, their internal motivators to really take control. But I think for the first episode, we're going to really have to cut it here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been absolutely awesome. We can't wait to kind of come back for the next episode.
Yeah, it's been good, man.
And see what the next topic is all about. So until next time, folks, take care, be kind, and just take care of yourself. Try and understand yourself, and just try and indulge in yourself just that little bit more.